Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, assemble commission to save college sports.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com to get started today with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, we're going to dive into something that obviously will be impacting Texas Tech, impacting the LBK, but impacting everybody near and far as it relates to the future of college sports. You might have seen that wrapping up last week, Red Raider Cody Campbell met with Nick Saban, as these two have been tabbed as co-chairs. We believe it will come to fruition. So far, just called that, but not appointed that just yet, of an upcoming college sports overlord commission, my own title. I took some creative license, but kind of trying to figure out what this will look like, obviously, is still maybe in some ways a fool's errand because there are so many different things to prioritize when it comes to the future of college sports. But some of what we'll get to today is the process ongoing right now as far as nominations to round out that committee or commission, which I've read will be somewhere around 10 or maybe 12 people that will be involved. I want to also get to some of those that maybe Locked On Texas Tech, in our infinite wisdom and brilliance, may nominate names that we'd like to see in the mix. And some issues to be tackled. Now, I'll tell you what they're talking about needing to tackle, but I've got some ideas of my own as well. Lowering the prices on beer at the concession stand, anyone? Is Nick and Cody even talking about that yet? Maybe they will be after today's episode. But Chris, as for those two minds getting together last week, and also that on the heels of some comments that I thought were kind of interesting from Nick Saban, I believe on the Paul Feinbaum show, talking about essentially him not wanting to be the tip of the spear, but more so just wanting to help someone who's trying to align college sports or organize college sports. I think there is a little bit of deflection there to say, it ain't all on me, guys. I may be a prominent face in this thing, but I don't have all the answers, which is probably smart. But I do also feel like, Chris, there needs to be a tip of said spear in some way. We've talked about like college football commissioners or leadership. And I think that something that's sort of plagued this entire enterprise or effort is that there's not really a figurehead here or there to look at for leadership or to look at for solutions. Now, I don't know who that could be or who that should be, but in some ways, while Nick Saban says he doesn't want to be that tip, I'm thinking we need the spear and we need a guy at the tip of that spear, at least in my mind, sort of something that's been lacking when it comes to all these moves being made. What do you think about those comments from Coach Saban?
There's no way that he didn't already know that he would be or was being heavily discussed as being involved. Okay, because he was like, "Yeah, commission. What are we doing here? Like, what's this mean? I don't even know if we need one." No, you did, and I get where he's coming at. I don't think he wants. I think it's interesting, and there's plenty of theories out there about why he kind of. His name was mentioned for this deal, and then when he's first asked about it, it's like he kind of very much backtracked. Did Greg Sankey tell him to backtrack? Does he really just not want to be responsible for the whole problem? Pick your theory. Doesn't matter. Yeah. He will be involved. I think he knew he was going to be involved, but I don't think that either he or the SEC or the SEC commissioner, whoever, again, pick your theory, wants the thought out there that they are either running it or that they have a mindset of exactly what their preference is on things that they will get done or an agenda. Okay, whatever. Again, pick your jargon. But I do think he's somebody that needs to be involved because he can bring the coach. He's respected. I think Cody respects him. I also think Nick Saban respects Cody Campbell. And I think that's important to note. And what can they realistically get done, right? It's going to take some loopholes and some gray area and some Congress help and some executive order help or whatever, or they're just going to talk about what they've talked about and never really get anything done. Okay, we've talked about this. We've established this part. Is this just a football problem? Is this a college athletics as a whole problem? Cody's a fan of Project Rudy. Cody's a fan of everybody making more money. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, does the SEC really just want to remain on top and be able to look down? Like, we don't care if we're making more money as long as you're making way less. I mean, there's all these dynamics.
Yeah.
Or is this realistically, is this a college athletics as a whole? Or are we just worried about football because football is really, if we get football fixed, then everything else falls in line? Because what they ultimately want to get done, and these are NCAA or college athletics problems as a whole. We talk about them a lot because they're in our lane as it relates to football. NIL, okay, all over the map. How should we do it? Guardrails, no guardrails. What are we doing? We capping it? Are we free? It's a free for all. Is there a happy medium? Right. Realignment. This is where Cody is really pointed to some of the things that were in place in the early 60s about broadcasting and being able to collectively bargain. Am I saying that right? In that frame, or fight for rights, as pool our rights together and fight for them as a whole. Yeah. We will all get more if we will, and then we can sell everything off piecemeal like the NFL is doing.
Yeah, there's no college sports TV contract. There are Big 10, SEC, Big 12 TV contracts, ACC TV contracts. So,
and that's what he's trying to do away with, because I think that collectively you all would make more. But again, is that really what the SEC and the Big 10, do they really want that? Or do they want that wide gap? I mean, and I think they probably do. And then the other one is like the transfer portal is, I think, something they will look to. And this is an easy fix. I say that. There is an easy button to push here if you can get everybody to agree, that I think would calm the waters, kind of create less movement, still give everybody an opportunity to move freely about the cabin, and all that. And I don't think I've missed anything on their short agenda, but there's a lot of problems within those categories too that need to, so who knows what happens here. But I'm glad they're meeting. I'm glad it's being reported that they've met and it went good. And now we'll see kind of what is on the horizon here as far as who else may join them.
With the dynamic that you presented a moment ago, like, do we care about college football? Do we care about college sports? I would say this: if you care about college sports down to rowing and underwater basket weaving, you better care about college football, because that's what makes it possible for the most part. I know there are some athletics departments that are highly subsidized by their universities. Is that sustainable long term? I'm not quite sure about that. But for the vast majority of college sports existences, it's about college football. So if you're caring about college sports in general, you better be caring about the direction of college football. The issues that lie sort of under the surface of what you're describing there, in sort of some general terms, when you talk about, ease of movement, when you talk about television contracts and agreements or possible future realignment, I think there's also, when you're considering, regulation for monetization opportunities for those student athletes, that is a complicated conversation to have, or possibly not, in that they're worth what somebody is willing to pay, just like real life. But there's also the thought of, are these student athletes, are these employees? I mean, there are so many things that we've got to go through and sort of parse here to figure out what the future is going to look like. It could give you the tired head very, very easy. I am curious to circle back really quickly. What's your easy button to push? Are we going back to talking about consequences for transfers or eligibility impact, or where are we going with an easy button?
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
What's your easy button to push? Are we going back to talking about consequences for transfers or eligibility impact, or where are we going with an easy button?
Okay, so I do think in this there's layers to this. I did like the rule that the SEC has in place, like in the spring portal window, you can't transfer within your own place or within your own conference. I have no problem with that. That just seems common sense. You can't go to a school, be there for the spring, and then transfer to another one after you've kind of that seems a bit odd. Go wherever else. But what I'm talking about is, and I do think they are working toward this end. I don't think the commission will necessarily have to push this button, because I think it will be pushed for them. And that is, I really think you are getting very close to, this is along the lines of the calendar. This will, like, spring football is going to change. Coaches are fighting right now for these. We want some workouts. We want some OTA type stuff, which stands for organized team activity. We want to spread it out and all that. So the spring football in the traditional sense is, I think, going to start to go away fairly soon. But one thing that I think that is going to happen, and I don't know if the commission will have to get involved or not, I think you're on the cusp of a single transfer portal window. Okay, I think to where they're not going to have. Because some of these issues would be alleviated if you only have the one, and I'd be willing to bet you that they will eliminate the one in December and really have one in late March, April-ish, early May-ish, something along those lines, and then that would be your sweet spot. And I'm talking in terms of football here, and I don't know if we have different windows, and we'll continue to do that. But this is a football conversation that I'm having. That portal window, a single one for football only. Now, maybe that can't work with other sports, or you can't blanket that, whatever. But I do think we're headed that way, and here's why. Here's some of the arguments. I think that people make decisions in December. You can be emotional after the season ends. You don't really know where you stand. I think that we would eliminate this possibility of, man, you went through the whole spring with us and now you're transferring again. Because there's been people that had entered the window in December, and then again in the second one too. It's like, come on, man. I mean, that eliminates a lot of that too. And there's plenty of, I think, other. I also think too, it helps the postseason. Regardless if you're a big bowl game guy or a playoff guy or whatever, they can't go into the portal until March or April or whatever. So let's just play. I just think it helps and we would all be for everybody playing at that time. It's just better for all involved, I would think. Teammates, coaches, your own mental deal that you're just like, man, I don't know if I should play. I'm in the portal, but I'm going to play for my team's bowl game. It just eliminates that as a possibility. So, but I think that is going to happen. And this is one of the things that the commission kind of had on their agenda, that they were talking about. We need to address these topics, but I do think that's about to happen.
I think that's one step in a two-step process to ease some of the chaos. To me, that's like shutting your door at night, but you hadn't locked it yet. The door's still open for chaos. So we've shut it. That's good. Now we want to lock it. To me, that's the consequence for transferring. Look, there's a crux of this entire thing here that we all run circles to kind of avoid. And by all, I just mostly mean college sports leadership or commentators or those who are sentimental about its past. And that is, are these student athletes or are these employees? Because one group, Chris, can have contracts and enforceable contracts and should receive some revenue that they generate. Can you guess which group that is? That's the employee group. But that's what they'll go through hell and high water to avoid calling these guys. So The student athletes, I don't know if you can necessarily have that, but the impact of being on the move every 365 days, costing you a year of eligibility, I think is fine enough. That's what we were operating under previously, and you got to bring something like that back. But I guess the biggest thing that I'm really wondering about is college sports ever going to actually acknowledge the reality that these are employees? Some employees are generating revenue, some aren't. Like, how do we share revenue with a non-employee that either they're generating it and they deserve some of it, or they're not? So I kind of feel like still this fantasy land we live in as it relates to these terms. And I know there's a lot on the line as far as legal obligations related to these terms. But this is like the biggest hurdle I think that is still out there, is trying to dance around either the student athlete or the employee category. And sometimes, Chris, I got to be honest, I just want to rip the Band-Aid off and say, let's call them employees and then let's operate in this reality with these types of enforcements. But I'm sure that is much easier said than done. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Oh, it absolutely does. And I'll tell you, it's not just the institutions or the higher ups that don't want to use the employee word, because you're fearful of collective bargaining and then the whole union thing and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
But I guarantee you, most athletes don't want to be termed an employee either. They don't want this either. And let me tell you why. Because if you're an employee, you show up late to a team meeting, you're fined. I'm firing you. Oh, you're sick today? Okay, well, or if you're insubordinate, I will fire you. And I have a right as your employer to pop you if you're not doing your job. If you're not very good, and like we thought you were, like, you're not getting it done, man. And so, like, this is the way the professionals work. Like, we're going to cut you. Hey, you didn't make the team. I mean, all these things. Yeah. So this isn't, they don't want this either. There's too many. I think the athlete they have it better right now than any other group of athletes have ever had it. Completely because they kind of have it. It's a bit of a one-sided deal. They're benefiting greatly, not having to deal with some of these other consequences of whatever, and they're well taken care of. And it's not just they wear great stuff and they eat well, they travel well. Yes, maybe there's some longer trips that folks are taking now than what they had to back in the day, but they're paid so well. It'll
be the most lucrative period in a lot of their lives.
1,000%.
And nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying
and there's an argument to be made that you're screwing them up too. It's like, we're not giving these kids, now it's somebody's fault. This is just what we're dealing with. But I don't know how I would be in life if you gave me the most I was ever going to get as like a 20-year-old, and then like I'm 27 and I'm like, damn, man. Yeah, it's you know what I mean? Like that I wish somebody would have told me that was as good as it was ever going to get, and I would never even come close to that. But that's the reality of it.
I got to be honest. A lot of what we're describing here is just life, and a lot of times I feel sort of callous viewing it this way. But I'm like, who cares? If you had a great set of parents, you'd be fine, I'm sure, as pretty much the rest of us are. And then some without a great set overachieve, and they become an exception where they also turn out fantastic, but had to endure some adverse circumstances. But it just traces back to you, the individual, or the individuals that raised you. At the end of the day, it's not money that screwed you up, or it's not the college giving you money or the business giving you money that screwed you up. It's probably whatever way in which you were raised to view said money or opportunities that might have screwed some things up. But that may be too much personal accountability for a conversation like this. But that's what I come back to with the student athlete or employee thing. Like you were just talking about there. Yeah, you've got this nice sort of insulated bubble right now where you're sort of having the best of both worlds, in that we're monetizing things to a great degree, but at the same time, I'm just a student athlete, like a fawn in the wild, innocent and precious. But I would have to ask a lot of these folks, dog, is it not better for the sport or for these sports for us to just embrace the employee reality? Would it maybe actually simplify things if you did that? Now, at the same time, we get back to the mess, because those actually generating revenue, you'll have to go up to someone and say, all right, man, do you mind subsidizing our tennis program this year? Because you're making cash here. They're not, but they need some of your cash. So do you mind? I mean, we're just talking about real life situations here. So you really got to figure out, like, what reality do you want to live in? Do you want to be the student athlete who's sort of in this protective cocoon, or do you want to be a revenue generating or non-revenue generating employee? But to me, that's where some of this mess really comes to an intersection, trying to figure out what you actually want to call these guys. But I'm going to go back to the very beginning of this portion of the conversation and yesterday's show and previous shows and say the ease of movement aspect, probably number one. Eliminating a transfer portal window, reinstituting consequences for being on the move, whether in your conference or otherwise, as it relates to eligibility. These are the first steps to take, I think, if you're actually serious about, I guess, narrowing down some of the chaos. But a lot of what we just described also goes into an effort to preserve those Olympic sports, which I know is also on the list of priorities for whatever this commission is going to look like. And that's kind of a tricky equation, I guess, to sort out if we're talking about a revenue sharing era, because revenue is not coming from those sports programs.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm in a cocoon and I'm well paid, a well paid cocoon sounds pretty good to me. So this is the way the football players are going to operate. Tennis players in the Olympic sports be damned. It kind of goes back to your who's got the gold, conversation.
That's right.
The other thing about, like, I just was thinking about the calendar and the single transfer portal window. You know what else that, like, moving it to the spring. Okay. And you pick your 2 or 3 week period. If it's late March, if it's early April, or if it's even in May, whatever. Pick your, it would need to be somewhere in that sweet spot to give people a chance to go visit where they're going, and they need to be where they're going to be, like, by June 1. Okay. So, it needs to be in that, 6 week to 2 month period, somewhere in that deal. And you keep it open for 2 or 3 weeks. The other thing that this does is December has driven me crazy for the last several years, just because there's too much happening at the same time. And I get the benefit of having your transfer portal class on campus. We're about to find out how big of a benefit that is. But we've talked about these new rules potentially coming, and that it may put more emphasis back on the high school player. I think that a single transfer window in the spring is better for the general high school athlete out there. I think it gives them more opportunities. I think it makes that a bigger deal at the time, and they could be, not that you're looking to celebrate that early signing period, but it really layers this deal to where I think you kind of have 2 recruiting cycles, where you have the high school thing that signs in December, and then whatever you're doing in the portal, like in the spring or whatever. And I know it's not as easy as that. There's a lot more to think through and pros and cons to it, but I'm telling you, I think you're much closer to something like that than anybody realizes. I don't know how quickly, but it's not going to surprise me if that is in place within the next year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are some of the things that will be thought about and prioritized to be tackled. As for the people who are doing the prioritizing and the tackling, well, we hear a name like Cody Campbell, we hear a name like Nick Saban, and then not so much so far, but have already seen some reports, obviously, about considerations happening regarding the remainder of this commission. And I've seen some suggesting that it could be 10 members in number, or maybe somewhere around 12. But I had a few nominations I wanted to see if I could offer up the great Chris Neville and the Locked On Texas Tech fam family, just to see if I'm on the right track. You down with those, Chris?
Sure. Yes. Okay. I will preface.
Are you nervous?
A little. I'm curious what you're going to say. I will preface this with, you will learn a lot about what this commission is about by who realistically will be appointed. Is this a football thing?
True.
Or are we going to have representation with women's sports and Olympic sports and like? You'll get a great feel for how diverse this committee is on what they're actually going to attempt to tackle, based on who, because what they've talked about, like a 10-person commission.
Yeah, 10 or 12 is what I've seen.
Okay, so either you have the 2 co-chairs and then 10 others, or the 2 co-chairs and 8 others. Either way, you'll get a good feel for it. Okay, I'm because the one individual that I really think will be on it too, Tommy Tuberville.
Woof. Woof.
Yeah,
I just saw him making some comments too about.
Oh yeah, he's involved.
If it keeps going this way, the University of Texas will never be beaten. What the hell are you talking about? That's college sports for its entire existence. The best team gets the first pick the next year every time.
I will say this. Based on how I think Cody is coming at this, I think Tuberville is much more like-minded in this realm, in this conversation, than Saban would be. I think Tubbs is worried about the whole thing and not just the SEC or just the whatever. And I think so. I'll just offer that up. That's what I think. I'm not in there, but that's my knowledge of the situation as I would portray it. How about that?
I just chuckle at anybody talking about competitive gaps. And that's what he's alluding to there at the University of Texas as far as the future. Where you been for 100 years? And maybe I am a little bit sensitive to it now that Texas Tech is throwing some cash around and all of a sudden like, oh, the rich are too rich, the Gulf, we've got to close the gap. We just got on this side of the gap. We ain't even there yet. We just bought a couple of good rosters. We're not even on the other side yet. We're still trying to climb up. Don't close the gap until we're safely on the other side. Okay, Anyway. Nominee number 1. Hologram Mike Leach. They're telling me that I can talk to my grandparents after they pass. They're telling me I can talk to deceased individuals. I saw Teddy Roosevelt in hologram form at a museum not too long ago. You can ask him questions. He says stuff. I don't know if it's what he would have really thought, but Mike Leach has said enough things into a microphone. AI can predict what he would think. Let's get him a seat in that room. Hologram Mike Leach. Nominee number 2.
I rank your first nominee 5 stars.
Thank you.
I would
How
like
many is that out of though?
5. I would like to this is a recruiting scale of stars. I would like to retweet that nomination too. If you toss it out there, yes, retweet. Okay.
I was gonna make sure it wasn't 5 out of 100. Number 2 nominee, Uncle Luke. Do you remember Uncle Luke?
Yes.
Some of the best college football teams in the history of college football. This man knows what it's all about inside and out. This is sort of like the thought that a company interested in cybersecurity hires a hacker. Does that make sense? We want to know a man that's seen the dirty underbelly. He lived in the dirty underbelly.
Just wanted to be way back. I wanted to be in one of his music videos way back in the day. which seemed like illegal at times.
You might have stood out, and not just because of your height.
Probably so. I would have liked to have been an innocent bystander paying attention, though. Like a lot going on there.
Similar vein, Johnny Manziel needs to be a part. Another hacker that understands cybersecurity. How about another pair of guys? I'm stuck in football land, but for some reason, Reggie Bush, Tim Tebow, I think need to be in this room. Tim Tebow is a saint of a man. Reggie Bush was done as wrong by the NCAA as probably anybody in a modern era. Let's get them in the room.
I think that's. I mean, in all seriousness, I think some of those individuals are. I mean, and I know we're poking fun at like Manziel. He may be a perfect fit from like, hey, this is what it's like. This is what I lived through. I've like seen somebody like Rich Rodriguez say he wants to be on it. I don't want a current coach on this deal. I think there's probably another former coach or two that you could really, like Barry Alvarez has always been a good like, guy.
I wondered if you were going to name my guy because I got a coach. I got a former coach.
Okay.
One Les Miles. I'm looking for somebody to shake it up. I need somebody that eats grass outside the box, man.
I don't think Coach Miles is in the. I think he's not in great health. But
that's unfortunate.
I know, yeah.
All right, well, maybe
but along those
category too. I don't know.
Along those lines, though, I like the way you're thinking, though.
How about former Grand Canyon, now I believe Arizona State head coach Molly Miller? Because obviously, I I'd also like to possibly offer up whoever was running North Carolina's athletics cheating program, which was one of the longest running and most successful in the history of college sports for one of the nation's most prominent athletics departments. I'm just all about like who gamed this system to the max extent. Can we now pick your brain?
Or Jordan Hudson, who gamed North Carolina into hiring her beau.
She's in the Miller category again.
Or Boo, yeah, whatever
If you're gonna have a commission, like take trips to resorts in Scottsdale, Arizona to talk about things, you're gonna need a couple of things. Johnny Manziel can bring those to that meeting. I have no doubt about that. And then Molly and Jordan can bring the other things. And I'd like to maybe just put a blanket kind of ruling in. I want 55 years old or younger. Sorry, seniors, you had your moment. You had your time in the sun with 100 years plus of college sports ineptitude. Let's get some new blood in the mix. And for crying out loud, I'm saying 55. It ain't exactly new, but it's newer than Gordon Gee or guys that wear bow ties and only have books in their living room. He doesn't even have a flat screen, I bet.
Yeah, individuals that have been on way too many committees before. And
yes.
I know. I get you.
I feel like this list can be taken and run with, at least for those who are still living or not yet soon to expire. So let's run this up the flagpole. I know you visit with Cody on occasion. Pass this along, please. Let's get it right to the top. I want it in the Oval Office by the weekend. Not too big of an ask, right?
I love it. You crushed that one, man. That was well done. Yes, I didn't see any of that.
Sports at heart.
I didn't even see any of that coming, but that's solid work, man.
Yeah, you thought we were probably going to go back to like multiple committee people. That's not what we're looking for. I don't like the politician that shows up after 40 years in Congress and says, now I have the ideas to fix this. No,
you're not looking for lifetime committee members. You're looking for some new blood. I like it. Yeah, because the term career politician is you're the anti that. So I totally get it. Yes, I totally get it.
And one more nomination, the great Chris Level. Why not? Let's throw him in the mix.
In all seriousness, there's probably a media member or two. Like I've always thought, like Dan Wetzel, who's written books about the somebody like that's well reasoned. That's not just a hard stance and one. You know, he can post up in the paint. He can also play outside the arc. I mean, he's somebody that like. But there's probably, in all seriousness, like a Pat McAfee or a Dan Wetzel. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you want a little more Big 12 flavor, I mean, Pat's your guy. But
I'm the guy that just offered Manziel and Uncle Luke, and I'm bristling at Pat McAfee. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like you need to, So yeah,
we've already got party guys, Chris. We can only have so many.
There's probably those legitimately like some media folk that would be well. Like I wouldn't want. It's got to be somebody that's like no Feinbaum or nothing like that. Where I'm talking about somebody that writes and covers about the entire sport. Heck, I mean Ross Dellinger like freaking breaks all the news from it. Like I mean, put his ass in there. I mean he'd be really good. But yeah, no, I think somebody like Dan Wetzel, I would say would be really good.
I like that idea. I mean,
in all seriousness, I think he would be. That you need some of that. Like, hey man, I've been writing about this stuff for 30 or 40 years. I've seen the changes. Here's the issues. Like, what if we do? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
It seems like our theme in general is outsiders, new perspectives.
Yes,
even with some of these,
because that's what Cody is.
Sure, and Nick Saban, I feel like, is as entrenched as an old timer insider. Like so much that he's all we need to represent that faction. Do we even need another member on the commission to represent that perspective? I don't quite know. Gordon Gee, by the one that said a college football playoff over his dead body. I'm not sure if he's expired yet, but he's due to any minute because we've got one now. So
last time I saw Gordon Gee at a West Virginia game, he had royal blue, like framed glasses.
Right.
The goldish and blue bow tie, blue sport coat with a blue shirt. He had these like Oxford shoes on, and then like some yellow socks. I mean, he was like the academia mascot for West Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, you look exactly like. I mean, you're the poster child for
The overeducated.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you got the guy in buckskins with a musket rifle and a coon cap just 10 feet away.
Boom. Yes, shooting off the musket, handing everybody out deer jerky.
Throw the Mountaineer on the commission, too. That's fine. Let's get a mascot in the mix. We probably need somebody with a rifle among this group.
If that's the case, I would nominate Cosmo. I'm just saying.
Tell us where we're right or wrong. I could go for hours on this, but we've run out of time, so we'll need to wrap it up. I'd love to hear from you in the YouTube comments or shoot us a text if you're a Matador Mob member. Chris, appreciate the time as always and the perspectives as well, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next one.
Keep hope alive, man. More committee talk coming up next, or maybe not. I don't know. We may never do this again. But, yeah, shout out to Johnny Football. I vote for you, sir. And I'm all about holograms, man, and a Mike Leach hologram. I'd go see that in a museum or across the street. Wherever you want to put one, I'm there. Yes. So we'll talk to everybody the next time.
There is no more electric committee conversation than what's happening right here on Locked On Texas Tech. And we got all this newfangled technology in the new football training facility. Can we not get a hologram Mike Leach as a greeter when you walk in the door? Is that too much to ask? I mean, we got a football field virtual reality practice field upstairs. Let's get working on this, I think. Let's get the boys over at the technology lab. Is that a thing? I don't know. Tech is in the name, for crying out loud. Surely we got one of those. Let's get to work on that. Priorities. Thank you so much for your time out there. Appreciate you as always. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the Everydayers for always riding along. And a shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link for a free 14-day trial. That is your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.